Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today for another Author's Afternoon in the Locker Room. Vincent Russell Van Patten is a writer, media creator, and co host of the Dare to Dream podcast. Most importantly, he considers himself an inspired citizen of our ever changing world, motivated by a love of travel, history, spirituality, personal growth, and human connection. Last year, Vincent was encouraged by somebody he admired to tell his story as he sees the world now. This is what the act of inspiration turned into. Within the pages of his debut novel, Arrows of Youth, a young man's inspiring journey to find what lights his soul on fire, you'll find what he loves, how he sees the world, and what he's learned so far at 26 years old. Arrows of Youth is a story of adventure, an ode to life, the incomprehensible, the beautiful, the painful, and the meaningful. Guided by ancient wisdom, timeless stories, and contemporary discussion, Vincent's book encompasses his quest to never stop asking, why are we really here? I am so looking forward to hearing from this inspiring and talented writer. Please welcome to the locker room, Vincent Van Patten. Hey, Vincent.
Hello. Hey, Alan. Thank you
Thank,
for having me.
thank you so much
Pleasure to
for
be
being
here.
here.
Of
I'm
course.
so glad. Well, let's get started. I said it backstage, but I'll say it so everybody can hear. I am, 200 pages into your book. I am loving it. I am truly moved by your words and your look at the world and your passion for travel. I
Thank you so
know
much.
you're very welcome, and I look forward to continuing. Just hard doing this show and making the time for everything else, but
Take your time.
I,
Take your time.
and it is something to take your time because your words you write quite well. You write quite well. So take
Thank
me
you.
back. You grew up in Del Mar, California. Your dad was the former actor and professional tennis player Vincent Van Patten, and mom Betsy Russell. When I mention Del Mar, California, and your childhood, what comes to mind?
So that's actually an interesting question. I grew up in Malibu. I was born in
Oh,
Sherman
okay.
Oaks in Los Angeles, but I live in Del Mar now. But when I was a kid, we actually did do like summer just trips to Del Mar. And so it was with,
Yeah.
so I never thought I'd actually be living here. It's quite random, but I guess it's not really. But I moved down in November, and yeah, every summer I just have memories of being a kid, me and my brother, Duke, surfing, Del Mar Beach. My grandpa Dickie, we'd get a house on the beach, and the whole family would come down here, right next to Sid Craig, and that was fascinating. I just knew he was a funny guy when I think I was like 8 years old, and him and Jenny Craig would be coming over and yeah, cooking, doing big dinners together. And so those are pretty much my childhood memories of Del Mar. Funny you should ask, but yeah, I grew up in Malibu and born in the San Fernando Valley.
When you say you rented a house in the family, how large is your family when you all get together?
So back then, there was always stragglers coming in, but the family is my grandparents, my uncles, my dad, my brothers, stepmom. Yeah, big family, probably like
Big
20
family.
20 of
Yeah.
us in the house at the time.
So that surrounded by a lot of love.
A lot of love and a lot of Clue. I remember we were playing Clue, the board game that night. That was fun.
That's great. That's
Yep.
great. So you earned your bachelor's degree in journalism from Cal Poly, right?
Yep.
Where did the desire or, what prompted you to study journalism?
Another funny story. So I never even wrote in high school. I wasn't on the newspaper or anything, but I did the high school newscast called Shark TV. And I was the anchor for that, and kind of figured that I liked newscasting. I liked being in front of the camera, and it was just kind of a joke. We like my friends were in it also, and we'd interview a water polo team and just like make a show for once a week. And so when we were applying for colleges, like I have no idea what I want to study, and that's something I'm interested in now. Like, what does college? How are kids expected to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives in high
Mhm.
school? And I'm like, oh, I guess I'll just do broadcasting. Like, that's something that I'm interested in right now. At Cal Poly, I hated journalism. Like, I just despised writing, and I was so scared to interview people. It's just funny how it all comes together, how I'm doing a podcast now. But I was so scared to interview people. I didn't consider myself a writer whatsoever. I just remember my first journalism class, 6 a.m. once a week that everybody has to go to. And I just sat in the back like, what am I doing? I just don't know why I'm doing journalism. 4 years later, a lot of phone calls with my mom of like, I just don't know why I'm doing this. Graduated, and then I started writing on Medium about just topics that I genuinely am interested in. And then that's when it all,
you became obsessed at that time, right?
yep, just trying to figure out my next steps. Like I worked in a clothing store and interior design. I worked in real estate for 2 years after that. And I was just writing on the side kind of during it all, and just about like my trips and just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And
What were some of the things you were writing about on Medium at the time?
so yeah, if you go back to my first few stories, like a trip just about Paris, just like me and my brother went to Paris, Biarritz. So like travel stories were what I found that I'd really liked and enjoyed doing. Just describing a place, just the feel of being there, the feel of the culture, and just kind of blending it all together, like history and just the people and the food and just everything about it. I'm like, this is what I genuinely like to do.
Mm.
But other than that, just stories about like finding what success means to you, just things that I was learning.
Is there a
Just the story.
story that had a big impact on readers or a big impact on yourself? Like one that stands out in your mind?
It's a great question. Really enjoyed one that I wrote about Biarritz, France, that me and my brother went to Biarritz. And I like one of the mornings, I just went out. My brother was still asleep, went out with my camera and just like running around all of Biarritz like, by myself, just on this cold and cloudy morning. And I just had this moment with a fisherman, just this lone French fisherman out on the dock. And I just like, can I take a picture? And just like was just hanging out by myself for a while with this French fisherman. We couldn't talk, like we couldn't converse, but it was just through his smile and through me just like being curious, I realized I'm like, I like genuinely like to do this. And so that was like the story that I wrote that I could think of right now, that where it all kind of came together, where it's like, how can I make
I,
this my life?
I understand that I visited a friend in Milan in 1992, and he had to work, and he sent me to Venice with one of his friends who didn't speak English. And it was the two of us on the train trying to communicate, and smiles and drawing pictures,
Yep.
The one thing I did forget to mention, when you've said this, is photography. You
Mm-hmm.
are a great, I love photography. I'm an avid photographer, as a hobby, but your
Mm-hmm.
pictures in the book are beautiful as well.
Thank you.
So for
Appreciate that.
people, it is about your travels, and the pictures, help to tell the story for sure. Well,
Thank you.
let's talk about the pandemic, the last year
Why
and a
not?
half, the last year and a half, and sort of I would think that sort of stirred the idea for this book and your travels.
For sure. Yeah. So basically how it all came together, at the beginning of the pandemic, I left my job in real estate, just realizing that like I had this calling to do something else. And what really was like making me sick, like just the not being 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. And I think that's something that so many of us deal with. Like we know maybe that there is something else that we want to do, but it's scary and it's not safe, and we don't know how we're gonna make money from it. And this is all the stuff that I was thinking. And but I realized like if I don't do this now, when am I gonna do it? Like go full in on writing. And so I left that, and I was working with my best friend too. Is tough, but obviously it was very happy for me. And went just right after that, just went full into like blogging on Medium. Didn't know like how I was gonna make money or anything yet. Still don't. But it was just just went in like writing 5 articles a week, and took this course that just took really seriously of this guy Tom Kugler, who inspired me. He's like 28 years old, digital nomad, kind of living the life that I am inspired to live. And he put together this Medium mastery course, and it just like fell in my lap. Like right when I left the job, I just found this course, like it was just meant to be. And I just went like full in on that. and just kind of figured out how to like actually build a following on Medium and take it seriously. And I started doing that. I'm getting my master's right now in creative writing, just online,
Yeah.
and I started that at the same time. So just writing a lot, and yeah. So then, just dealing with like the real kind of crux of it all, I guess, was I was like, I need to. There's just so much like noise happening, at the beginning of the pandemic of like what to believe, what do I actually believe about all this, what
Hmm.
is right and wrong. Like nobody really knows the answers, and I was like, I just
We
would
still
love.
don't.
Far from it.
Far from it.
I was like, I just need to step away from a bit just to get some
Yeah.
clarity of like what I want to do with my life and how I could actually be and have an impact on this like monumental time in history where there are no rules right now. And so yeah, I was kind of just thinking about that, and then went on a
And,
trip
and
to.
someone and someone encouraged you, right, to
Yep,
tell your
absolutely.
story.
Yep. So I went. So that will come right after this. So I went on a trip to Austin with my brother Duke, and we're in the airport about to come back, and we see green lights, Matthew McConaughey's green lights in the airport kiosk, and we're like, we have to get it. We're in Austin, just came out, like McConaughey's great memoir, and we both get it. I just start like ripping through it on the plane. It was just an awesome book, and I'm just like, okay, I need to do a road trip, like a solo road trip, just to get some clarity and figure out what I really want to do. It was just such an inspiring book. And then right after that, as I'm like putting together the plan, I get this message from my first quarter in my master's curriculum from my writer's workshop professor. And he's like, the time has come to tell your story, like as you see the world now. Because I was thinking about like, so what am I just going to blog forever? What am I really going
Hmm.
to do with this? And I was definitely thinking about a book, but I was scared. Like, how can I write a book? Who am I to even try that? All the resistance coming out of the woodworks. And
Well, I mean, fear is a real thing, and I can't imagine.
oh yeah,
I can't imagine at your age even. I worked, but attempting something like that and putting my thoughts, on paper and doing it.
really,
So,
thank you. Well, yeah, really just started with that, just getting the thoughts on the page, and then it just that's what I tell people who like ask about writing a book and just about starting anything. It's like all you gotta do is take the first step, and you'll just be amazed by how the snowball effect, how it'll just spiral
well,
out of control. And
fear is overwhelming, and you talk about fear. How did you know, break that hurdle?
so basically, like honestly, the message from my professor was just super inspiring. Like if he told me he's like the time has come to write your story as you see it now, and that just told me I don't have to be 50 years old to write a book because I'm going to see the world differently then. I people might get something from the perspective of a 25-year-old, and especially my generation who's trying to
Hmm.
figure out what we really want to do with our lives. And so I'm like, okay, like if he's telling me to do it, I got to do it, go for it. Like I
And
don't want to
and did
regret
he
not
know
doing it.
you? Did he understand that you wanted to travel or that you wanted to tell a
Uh,
story?
no, I have no idea. I don't. I mean, maybe I kind of forget what I was writing in the class,
Yeah.
but he did tell me I just like from my poetry that I reminded of Walt Whitman, who's like one of my favorite poets, and I was like, okay, well, I mean something.
That's a pretty big compliment.
Yeah, just because I was,
The
you know,
poetry is as well, the poetry in the book, which I'll get to. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to get that kind of compliment is encouraging and
for
something
sure.
I think any writer, would need that push.
Mhm.
Do you remember who the first person or people you shared your idea for the book with was?
Um, Probably my had to have been my parents. I mean,
Yeah.
or my friends or Duke, but um, I think it like I didn't even when I went on the trip, it was still just like an inkling of an idea. It wasn't like I'm gonna write a book on this trip. It was like I'm just gonna go and write and travel and like just kind of lose myself out there and see what happens.
And
And
you said you didn't write before. So like even in high school and you didn't write a
yeah,
journal, you didn't keep a journal?
no, not really. Like
Wow.
so when I even think about like how I got yeah, it's
That's
weird.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do have lots of writing in my family history, and I started to really like dive into that over that summer when I just like went full in on writing. My mom's grandpa was Max Lerner, who was like a huge political writer of the 20th century, early 1900s, and my mom's dad was Richard Russell, and he had like the huge it's called the Dow Theory's Letters, and it was about the stock market that he wrote pretty much his entire life after coming back from World War II. And so, I mean, it's in my blood, but like I really just didn't tap into it until the last
Yeah, I
couple
mean,
years.
you must have had so much of this in your head, and then, once, sort of, I would say your teachers helped you, you know, take it from here to
For
the
sure.
page,
Yeah, totally.
But I mean, to think, to hear you say that you didn't write when you were younger, and you took all the journalism classes, and now you're going for your master's in creative writing. When was the first piece of poetry that you wrote?
It was, and this is why it's like the book is so cool just on its own, just from me personally. Like the first two poems were the first ones that I wrote. I think the second one in the book, like He Knew He Could Fly, I wrote just after coming back from a trip with my dad, my brother to Berlin. And that was like one of my favorite trips in my life. Like it's one of my favorite cities, and we really want to go back. And I remember coming back from that, just missing like the cold, dark days in Berlin. And I was just kind of sad back home and wrote that. So I think the poetry kind of started after college, probably when I was like 21 when I graduated. It's like 22, kind of started that stuff.
I am blown away, and because every chapter leads with a poem, right?
Yep. So it was like,
And
yeah, I'll have
each of
that forever.
those are yours.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I should be standing up.
Oh,
That's
please. Thank you.
impressive.
I
That's
appreciate it.
impressive.
Yeah, poetry is definitely like, it just brings me a lot of joy because, and I just, would tell anybody just like for the times where I'm just kind of grappling with something and I like don't know how to put it together in like a cohesive essay, like this idea, it's like just, all it takes is 10 words of like a poem and you could sum up what you're feeling, and sometimes a lot better than like a big essay or something.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
if you're
I mean,
so if you're feeling
I
something,
don't think I
maybe
would be able
try.
to articulate it in that way, but that's truly, truly amazing.
Thank you.
Your stepmom is actress Eileen Davidson from The Young and the Restless, and in the book,
That's
you
correct.
say how she has always been a creative spark in your life. Can you elaborate?
Totally. So yeah, I mean, she has been for sure. Like when we were kids, some of our best memories were she would take us to the Harry Potter movies, like up in San Luis Obispo, where I ended up going to school. But I just remember going to the old theater, and she was just that, that imaginative spark in our lives. Like me and my brother were young. We shared a room, and she created the golden snitch out of, I don't know if you've seen the Harry Potter movies, but she glued angel wings to like this little orb and tied it to the ceiling, and it was flying around the room, stuff like that. Like she's a great painter and inspired us to like paint when we were little. She would always help me with my homework projects and making paper mache and all that stuff. So she was definitely the kind of creative one, just
Yeah,
always
and I
having a
mean,
good time.
she's in the arts, so
She loves the arts.
she loves the arts. Yeah,
No
that
tease.
makes
Yes,
sense. You know, you talk about traveling even to the beach with your family, and the trip to Berlin with your dad. Talk about the power of travel and how you believe travel changes us.
for sure. So, I mean, I know, like, just from personal experience, I know how much travel changes us, but I just want to like mention, like Jordan Peterson has been one of my biggest inspirations over the last couple of years. I like read all three of his books during this pandemic, and he just talks about like, you know, there's so much dormant potential like in us that we will never unlock until we go out there and face adversity in a way, but just face new
Hmm.
experiences. Like literally our DNA changes when we're out in the world, just on high alert. We like unfamiliar language, unfamiliar place. We just don't know what we could be when, especially if you're by yourself and you're forced to speak up to a stranger, you're forced to eat meals by yourself, take the train by yourself. Like, it's just, that's, travel does change you. But personally, it's just, nothing makes me happier than like waking up on a cold morning, like in Dublin. Me and my dad, before the pandemic, went on this awesome trip to Dublin, and just a cold, rainy morning. It's like something that we truly bond over. And just getting out into the streets and exploring, and with my camera, and it's just, there's nothing like it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, you know, that fisherman story, you know, made me think of that trip to Venice on a train. You know, it's something, you know, I've never forgotten. I'm still friends with my friend who, uh, you know, put me on the train with his good friend. But I had lost
There
touch
you
with
go.
that guy for many, many years, and we reconnected on Facebook.
I know
And
what.
instantly sort of had that reconnection again, because it was such a, for both of us, you know,
Mhm.
somebody who's, you know, so I thank you, you know, for saying it out loud. It really does. And, you know, in the book, what I love too are those moments
Mhm.
that you are alone and someone is behind you, or someone's in front of you, or someone's up, you know, when you're getting your cup of joe. Those are great moments
Thank
in
you.
the book. You know, I love them in the book. You know, there's
Appreciate
a
it.
character in your book who you talk about, Sam. Can you talk about the
Mhm.
impact he had on your life?
Yeah. Sam. Yes. That was my hard ass journalism professor. The guy's just, if you met, Sam the Snowman from like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like the old Christmas specials, he looked to a T exactly like that. And the guy, it was like, I was, as a journalism student who just felt like I had no place in journalism, I was extra scared of him. And so the classes he would teach were media law, which is like, you had to take it when you were done putting it off as long as you can. And you were expected to get like, you expected to fail pretty much. But like that class, media ethics, and then he also taught just the introduction to journalism. But I mean, first of all, just overcoming my fear of an adult or somebody else who, he's no different than me, but he's had these incredible experiences. He grew up like as a news reporter in Texas in the 50s, and he is Asian, so he's a minority at the time, and so I'm sure he was treated, very wrongly a lot of the times, because searching for the truth, and that was his big thing, is democracy and the truth. And he truly believed it. He was one of those professors, especially in journalism, who he just didn't take your crap, and he called on you when you didn't want to be called on, and just made it very hard. And I just learned to face that fear. Like we would all have to join him after class to go over our stories, and he would bring out like the big uh, roll of just for editing, and just very old school, and kind of just
Hmm.
learned like the nuances of writing in the first place, like just getting rid of the unnecessary. So he would just scratch everything out pretty much. But just like, I got to know him a little bit more. And he was a good guy underneath it all, of course, under the, his
But
shell.
you didn't realize the impact that
No,
was having on you at the time, right?
definitely not. I just wanted to
Yeah.
be out of journalism. Like, I was just a college kid, just in a
Get me
fraternity, just
the
trying
F
to,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
trying to keep my head
Yeah.
above water. But it all
Yeah.
hit me
Well,
after.
do you remember what you say in the book that he taught you?
Um,
How to use the
so,
written word as a
uh,
guiding light to illuminate the darkness of the world.
yes.
Powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
Powerful.
That was his message, that we, if you could write, and this is Jordan Peterson's great message as well. If you can write, if you could articulate yourself, you are unstoppable, and you could really change the world. You never know what kind of impact you could have. So you gotta make sure it's positive. That's what he taught me.
Amazing. And it's amazing, because a lot of times we fight. Like I wish, you talk. There's something you talk about in the book shortly, I think, where I am right now, about like the history of our families and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
it took me a long time to understand my family's history. My parents were Holocaust survivors, but it's, I didn't like history when I was little, and makes me so mad because I think there's so much to learn from it.
For sure. Have you started kind of diving into your family history more as
Oh,
of late?
I have, and I've been able to. My parents sadly are no longer with me, and I wouldn't be talking to you if it wasn't for the people who risked their lives to save both of my families. So I've been able to do some shows with some ancestors of the families that saved my mom's family. So
Wow.
yeah, it is, and it's just fascinating because as kids, and you don't realize the impact of certain teachers and the history in your own lives. But here you
No.
are at 26 articulating it, and I hope people whoever's tuning in, learns from you because it's truth. You mentioned your one grandfather, Richard Russell. You
Mhm.
also Dick or Dickie Van Patten, as you called him, Dickie. Talk about your relationships with both men.
Yeah, so growing up, kind of like I was saying earlier, I didn't wasn't that close with my mom's side, which was like the writing side. So with my grandpa Richard, it was a little bit colder of a relationship. It's funny how I live in San Diego now, but he lived in La Jolla, and that's still where we have some family here. And so it was always, not like as warm of a relationship as my other side with Dickie. But he would draw us cartoons when we were kids, and I just have funny memories of like staying over at his house. And but
But he was
I
a
mean,
writer.
he was a writer, so it's like how it kind of
Yeah,
it all comes together is
osmosis.
yeah, exactly. And I got my whole life to kind of communicate with him just through writing. And his mom was actually a writer as well, like published author, and I read her books over the summer, like when this all kind of happened. And that was a big awakening to him. Like it's all there. Just kind of got to dive into it. We can learn a lot from our family's history, all of us, 'cause we're here for a reason. So on the other side, my dad's
It
side.
is true. It's so true that you say that. And what's so important is learn it now before it's too late, because so many of us wait till it's too late to learn it.
True. And
You
even if
know,
you
you
don't think there's anything there, like you're here for a reason. There's courageous individuals who in all our families who made sacrifices and got us to this point. So we got to carry on that legacy. But yeah, my dad's side was just kind of the family I grew up with more, like the Del Mar excursions over the summers. And my grandpa Dickie was obviously a huge influence in my life. Just joy, joyous soul, a ball of sunlight. and but he was at the racetrack every single day of his
I
life,
loved
just
that story.
absolutely
I don't think I
obsessed.
knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every
I
single
love that.
day. That was just made him happier than anything else. Santa Anita or Hollywood Park. And yeah, best friends Mel Brooks. So they were just like two kids in a candy shop, just at the races every single day. And so he was just growing up with him, just have somebody to look up to who's always laughing, always a smile on his face. I mean, obviously that was just a kid and that was my perception of it all, but that's what I saw. And that's definitely been a huge inspiration for me. And my grandma, Pat, on my dad's side as well, is just she's still alive and going strong. She's got
Wow.
heart of an ox. I don't know if heart of an ox is quite the term. But yeah, she's amazing. She put
It's
up with him
awesome
all
that
those years. Italian blood, so obviously some strong personalities.
you
But
should put up with him going to the racetrack all the time.
yeah, and dinner table antics and what have you. But yeah, she's amazing. My dad, my uncles, Nels and Jimmy, they're all just hilarious guys who just have such a love for life. And that's
Well,
just
I grew up with your Dickie, your granddad.
yeah.
That was my probably teenage years when he was dad on Eight Is Enough.
Yep.
Probably my
Yeah,
teenage years. I mean, that was definitely a family show. I definitely one of those you enjoyed with your family.
for sure. Yeah, how so many people have told me that your
Yeah.
grandpa was like my dad growing up, and like in real
Yeah.
estate,
Oh,
me
really?
or just like so me and my buddy, we'd be door knocking, like ask people to sell their house, and I give them my card and be like, "You're not related to," but yep,
That's very
thinking he was
funny.
my grandpa. I was like, like, and just having that, like having people just treat me like that off the bat, just because who my grandpa was just mind blowing. Like such a warm
Isn't
way. Like your grandpa
power
really,
power of the medium.
yeah, and just have a positive history like
Yeah.
that is pretty wild. I
But
definitely don't
that's
want to take it for
interesting
granted.
because you make me think like, what if, he was known on a cop show for something bad?
Yeah, that would be funny.
What
I guess he
what
was
would
an
the
undercover
reaction
cop.
be when you come to the door?
Yeah, seriously.
But
No, but
that's great because it shows that even, and think about it, when he was in his heyday, it was three networks.
yeah, so he was the guy, and then he
He
was
was the
out of work for,
guy.
yeah, he was out of work for a long time as well. Before Eight is Enough, and he worked as a real estate agent. And
Oh
my
wow.
grandma always tells stories that he like actually really loved it. Like in the middle of the night, he'd wake up laughing and like just be like, I just thought of the perfect house for the Joneses, or just some. She always tells that story, but
You're
he just
really
kind of loved
following
whatever he
in
did.
everybody's footsteps.
Yeah, straight down the line.
You
Yeah.
really are. In the book you also talk, and I probably will not pronounce his last name correctly. Vishen Lakiani?
Yes, Vishen Lakiani. Don't know him
Vishen
personally, but
Lakiana. Right. But you talk about him. He's the founder of the world's leading personal growth platform, but he impacted your life in a big way during the pandemic. Can
mhm.
you share how?
Absolutely. So yeah, Vishen Lakiani, he's the founder of Mind Valley, which is just this whole just I don't know what would you call it, just a universe in itself of just personal growth and personal development. And I just got really into it over the pandemic of just reading his books, The Buddha and the Badass, which I took on the trip, which was just big impact on my life, and just listening to him on podcasts and stuff, and just the idea of inclusivity, unity as a planet, as opposed to just like this, obviously I don't have the answers and I don't know how to fix the world's problems or anything, but there's got to be something to bringing us closer. Basically, my question is this bringing us closer or is this dividing us further in everything we're doing, in, the vaccines and everything, in just pandemic, in political, like, are we at least trying to understand each other, or are our blinders just up? And so he, like, one of his biggest impacts on me was just hearing him talk about kind of just that, having that mindset of kind of global unity. Obviously we're not all the same. We all are all human beings, but our differences make us unique and interesting, and as our cultures and as countries and people, and those should be celebrated, instead of
Mhm.
kind of our borders and everything. And I'm not political whatsoever, but I think there's something there. I don't know.
Well, you may not be political, but you seem to care
Yes.
about where the direction our world is going in, and questioning, you know, we should be able to talk to each other with respect and
Yes.
understanding and not be so divisive completely.
Hmm.
Uh, I mentioned, like, I think about, what my parents went through, and, would people risk lives like that today for others? Look at what
Yeah.
happened on January 6th. I mean, like, that shouldn't be happening here in the United States. That type of anger is hard to comprehend. I think at 26, at 55, I don't
Yeah.
understand it and don't have the answers either. Um, and I do think talking about it, if you can talk respectfully,
Hmm.
is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. As long as,
Yeah.
we can talk about these things and try, there's truth out there somewhere. And if our conversations are kind of bringing us together to try to find a common truth as opposed to just wanting to hear ourselves talk, I think.
Right, or a common understanding, or just be able to hear each other's sides. We may not agree with everything, but
Yeah,
y-
absolutely.
at least you're listening without the worry of retribution per se.
Hmm.
Um, one of my questions was going to be, have you always journaled your travels? Which I don't think you have until this trip. Is that
Um, Good question. I don't think I really like did journal. So for the first like real travel story I wrote, I think it was that story on Paris. It was just I just kind of look back on it, and it's like pretty short. It's not like probably 1,500 words, not like a book whatsoever or anything, but it's just like a day in the life of me and my brother just roaming around Paris. And so I don't know if I really journaled like while I was on the trips at the time, but another big one I did was just I went to Japan for a month in 2019, like right before the pandemic, and did like a 5-part kind of just essay series on that. But I think I journaled on that
well
trip.
on
So
this trip
leaning towards
that
that.
led to Arrows of Youth? You kept a journal to look back on for the writing, or no? Do I have that right?
I was just writing the whole time, just like on the computer, just living in it, living in the words. Big time.
But like one of those chance meetings in a coffee shop. You'd be writing that night about what happened that day.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
write about I'd have the day and then I'd just write about it at night. And like
Wow.
I had several more chapters, just kind of random stuff, like just like more stuff like the podcast that I was listening to on the trip, because I was just listening to some powerful stuff, like just being by myself out there, just long, like 11-hour drives. I think was the longest from Yosemite to the Redwoods. Um, so I was just podcasts and audiobooks. And so like I was taking a lot away from those and kind of just trying to make sense of it all. And then it all just like, as I started editing and getting rid of a lot of stuff, it just the web just started coming together. I'm like, this is actually something.
Yeah, I mean that's the fascinating part to me, is how you wove this together. As I am reading the book, I am reminded at how well read you are. I mean,
Thank you.
I,
Yeah, that's
have you always?
no. So that's what I was gonna say. That's like something that's kind of just surreal to me too, I guess. Like just how interested I got with learning after I graduated from college. Like just night and day. Just with it, like so as a kid, I definitely, and this is all kind of just coming together now, but basically my whole just what I'm trying to do right now is reconnect with who I was as a kid. Because I'm feeling like, being mature and kind of letting that childlike spirit is two different things. Like I think maturity is just being able to care for other people and put other people before yourself. And but we don't have to lose the child.
The inner child, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about the light going out, but yeah, we don't have to lose the inner child in us. And that's what I'm realizing is just the most important thing to like help us find what we really want to do and what really makes us happy. So like this similar thing that there we go. Um, so where did the reading come from? I was like, did I always love to read? And I have to really think back. Like I have a few specific memories of like I did like fantasy books as a kid. Um, but then like I read like a few books in college outside of like the required reading, just probably like 3. And then after school, I like really just started diving into like just history and things that I'm actually interested in. So then it just
I can't
wow.
wait for people to pick this book up, because you would think you have been reading since your parents put a book in your hand at 2, because you talk about, you know, a
Yeah.
wealth of uh, knowledge that you have read and weave into the book.
Hmm.
From Walt Whitman, your favorite poet, to Jack Kerouac. I mean, so many, I'm not even going to be able to name them all because I haven't read them.
No, it's all right.
It's impressive. But yeah, that's and like I said, you weave interesting quotes, poems, and pieces from some of your favorite authors' books and stories. How did you know what parts you wanted to bring in?
Mhm.
Did somebody help you?
No, not with that. It's just like the things that are in the book are kind of themes and books that have really made an impact on me. So like East of Eden by John
That's
Steinbeck.
yeah.
That book hit hard. Just such a telling book of just about morals and like about the human soul. We want to do good, but continue to do things which we don't like. Um, and just striving to be a good person. That's just like a theme from that book. But it was really inspired by one of my favorite authors, Karl Ove Nosgaard, and his series called the My Struggle series. It's 6 parts. Eileen I think she's on the last book now, and I told her to read it like I think less than a year ago. And it's like 3,600 pages. So that's good. It's good.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Oh
so
my
his
God, that would overwhelm me.
yeah, it's a lot. Could take a lifetime, but she's cruising through it. And that book really showed me. So it's 3,600 pages on this guy's life that is really mundane. Like he's Norwegian man, and he just talks about just dealing with his father's death. That's like kind of how the first book starts. And it's just a memoir. And my brother kept asking me as I'm reading it, he's like, why did this guy write a book? Like who gave him why should we care? And I like can never really answer. I'm like, I don't know, but I love it. Like, I don't know how. Well, I do know how. I was in San Francisco and I saw his other book, Autumn, which I just read recently. Um, so I didn't pick it up at the time, but the cover just like caught my attention. This beautiful like painting of the sea, and I was like, Karl of Nosgard, who is this? Look him up and just go down the rabbit hole of my struggle. So the series taught me that one of my favorite quotes from the book, and it's in Arrows of Youth, is that we're all dealing with something that seems insurmountable. Like every human being is dealing with challenges that we feel like we have to take on alone. But by writing, by sharing your experiences, you realize that we're all dealing with something and we're not alone. And I'm like, if I'm this interested in this guy's story, like of just like what I love about the books is he just captures like the beauty in the mundane. So he just talks about daily life in Norway and Sweden of just doing dishes and growing up with his kids. And, he's troubled soul as we all are. And he deals with just doing things he doesn't like, bad relationships and just growing up as a kid and his abusive parents. And so it's pretty dark in a lot of ways, but it just showed me that there is beauty and it can be captured in every single day. And that is like really what I just continue to write about, just like daily experiences. So like I'll just write about what I'm thinking about on a walk, and just I feel like I've done it so many times lately, but just writing about like going to the beach. Like, well, if I'm continuing to be interested about it, then that's all that really matters. And
It's
long story short,
seriously like a light went off in your head,
big
at some point,
time.
and you are absorbing, literature, the world around you, and yeah, I
Yeah,
mean it's amazing,
thank you.
and yeah, I really,
I
and I
appreciate it.
said, it's really like, inspiring. And
Thank you.
I said it backstage. I mean, you're like an old soul in a 26-year-old body, it's like you've lived this life, but you're really just living in it right now and
And
exploring.
it's a great point, and I appreciate that. But just kind of figuring out, like, sometimes I feel like that. I'm like, am I act? No, I mean, I'm not acting too old for my age, but like, should I just be letting go more, having more fun, just not caring as much? And then I go back to the other side of like, why am I really here? What does it mean to be a human? The big metaphysical questions. And, you know, it's never going to be an easy answer. You're never really going to, it's never just going to hit you like what you're doing is the exact right thing, the exact path that you're supposed to be on. But, this just kind of I think it'll never just be a clean and easy path. I'll be doing a little bit of both, you know?
There's not a clear and easy answer to any of
No.
it, you know? We're all going through it. Eh, did the pandemic really ignite those questions in you? Sort of?
Yes, for sure. Just the stuff that was like just trying to figure out what I actually thought about it all. Like in the beginning, especially when there was like in like the protest in LA too, where just like I was like, how is this happening? Like Santa Monica's on fire. And like I was in Malibu at my mom's house and just I was like, well, I need to figure out what I kind of think about all of this. And so it definitely got me like curious and wanting to just figure some things out for myself and make my own decisions. And I think that's what kind of drew me to going into nature. I was like, I just need some like real space away from TVs and the noise and everything to actually think about these things. Obviously, writing is just so helpful for anybody, I think.
How many hours a day do you say you write now?
Um, with school, I try to still write like 3 to 4 articles a week of like on my probably like 3 a week on my own. And then with school stuff, like 2 to 3 hours a day of like being in front of the screen trying to write.
So journalism wasn't for you. Is this creative writing program for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm loving it. Just for the first time, like sincerely enjoy school. Like it gives me, even if I don't want to write, I'm like, oh, I still have to do something for class. So it's making me write a lot, pretty much. Um,
And
and yeah, and so yeah, go ahead.
what did the teacher think? The professor think of has he
I
read
haven't
this?
I sent it to him, haven't gotten a hold of him. I don't know if he's still at the University of Denver where I'm doing my classes.
Okay.
I called and tried to figure out. I'm like, I gotta get in touch with this guy, but yeah, he's out there somewhere. I don't know.
I mean, that he
The
should
book will
take
find him.
credit.
I know. I
Yeah.
told him, like, you truly inspired me to write this book. Like, you told me to tell my story as I see it now. Here it is.
There's
This
a
is the
moment in
story.
the book that I just loved, when you get the tap on the window from the young
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. That was an interesting moment. It's just
I
after,
mean, here you are at your age, and they're asking you, to get them alcohol or other, other
yeah.
stuff to, which is, what we all probably did in high school.
Yep. I was shoulder tapping in high school outside of a pavilion's parking lot. But yeah, that was a funny experience. Just after a full day, just in the trees. I thought I was like gonna go check out the northernmost city in California, Crescent Bay or Crescent City. And it's a sad place. It's decrepit. And I was just like, geez, this is no good. Very depressing. And then just pulled over by eating some like crackers and cheese on the side of the road. And this just tap on the window, this group of kids just asking for alcohol, all the other goods. Yeah, well, that's the end of the California
Yeah, it's
part.
it's just, part of the journey, part of the journey.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about your trip to Japan, um, and in the book, you say it was a childhood dream.
Yes. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think since I was a kid, I've just had this affinity for Japan, just for the people and the food, the culture, just the aesthetic and like the artwork of Japan and everything about it. And so
Where do you
this,
think it came from?
I have no idea. I really
Huh?
don't know. Like I wonder what the first kind of thing that sparked it all for me. Maybe just samurais and I don't know.
Maybe,
I'm
yeah.
not could have been. But I am planning on moving to Japan next year to teach English and
Oh, awesome.
yeah, see where that goes. So I'm pretty much like I was planning on doing that before pretty much anything else because I want to live in another country at least like for a year or two and just truly challenge myself, get out there and experience something very new. So
Well, I look
this,
forward to the writing from there.
yes, thank you. Yeah,
That
that's kind of
that
where
that'll be great. Did it
it's
live
fun.
up to your dream the first time around?
Oh yeah. So I went with 8 of my best friends, and it was just quite a surreal trip. So a month, and we started in Tokyo, went through Hakone, which is like the old uh, imperial highway, like from Tokyo to Kyoto. We like walked just this ancient route, and then went down to Osaka, Kyoto, and then stayed in a cabin on Shikoku, which is one of the 4 main islands, just like very rural and just archaic. And that was just unlike, I mean, the whole trip was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Just the ease of getting around the trains, and conveyor belt sushi is so good. It's great. Sake. It's all fun. Yeah, Japan is awesome. So
Yeah, I've
it should be
only
good riding
I
coming
think I
from it.
flew in to Japan on the way to China. Um, your passion for travel, is there another place like Japan that you've been, dying to go to?
Um, Definitely South America. I've never been, so I've done a lot of Europe, and I was thinking like I definitely want to move somewhere, but it's got to be a place that challenges me a little bit more than that. Just it would still be comfortable being in Europe, even though obviously it's not comfortable. It's like living anywhere that's not your home is uncomfortable, but um, yeah, I want to see it all for sure. Like Scotland is definitely, I mean, it's Europe, but Scotland's at the top of my list. The Camino de Santiago, it's like the pilgrimage from France to Spain, something I really want to do. Yeah, South America, just all of it. Andes, Africa,
Mm,
the whole world.
that's great.
Yes,
I
it's
mean,
exciting.
amazing. You really seem to me very self-aware, passionate, and spiritual. Where do you think the spirituality comes from?
Definitely my mom. Talk about it in the book, but yeah, she's a life coach, and she got her master's in spiritual psychology. And she definitely got me and my brother Duke just to start thinking more about our thoughts and like not having to believe them. Uh, just, yeah, basically taking control of your environment, not letting your environment kind of affect you, kind of cultivating peace from within. And then no matter what you kind of go through in life, you can kind of return to that. And that no matter what, like I have this fortified spirit in me that hopefully will be unshaken. Obviously we're going to go through a lot, and it's not easy, but like just taking steps down that road of trying to really discover who you are inside and what brings you peace, and having that to always return to. But the biggest thing for my mom is just not trusting your low moods. That's been big for me, and it's still something I battle with. Like when you're in the low moods, just getting barraged by negative thoughts, you don't have to trust them. It's like their cars passing on a highway, and you could latch on to each one or let them go along, and
Hmm.
always, things will get better.
Oh, I love that.
It always happens. A couple days
That's a
pass, and
great, yeah, but I love that analogy of the cars pass, the
yeah,
thoughts pass.
clouds. Yep, just let them pass on through.
Wow. That
She'd be happy hearing that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, many people, could could do that. Do you feel more at peace since this journey to Hours of Youth?
um, that is a good question. Don't know about at peace, but definitely like on some sort
On
of path, some sort
on
of,
the on the right direction?
yeah, I'm heading in the right direction, just because I feel like what I'm doing is bringing me intrinsic joy. Like if that's happening, then there's got to be something right happening. Um, but yeah, just like, the biggest thing for me. So I planned on moving to Japan, or just like had the idea like 2.5 years ago. Um, Probably less than that. The trip was 2 years ago almost. And I was considering it before then, but then like I think right before the pandemic, I was like really planning on moving to Japan like as soon as possible. And then this happened, and pretty much it's been on hold like for the entire pandemic. But if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have written this book. And
Mhm.
so basically, like I've had to learn how to be very content and like okay with what is right now. And instead of like constantly waiting for something that's going to come in the future that may or may not make me happy. Like also I put so much like into that thought, like, oh, I'm going to find myself out there. I'm going to make it. And like, I have no idea. I might not like it. It's just, so I'm pretty much just trying to like be fully present with where I am and just happy in that. And kind of goes back to just finding the beauty in every day and whatever you're doing. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
it does. It does.
Some way.
Did you hold the book for the first time in your hand?
When? Just in general?
Like when you were done with writing Arrows of Youth.
Yes, absolutely. I shipped it to my mom's, just the first like pre-order copy. It still had like the not for resale sign over it, and cried, opened the box. Just it's like for 8 months, whatever I was putting together, like just seeing it on the screen every single day. And it was surreal holding it for the first time. Just like, wow.
How did you know you were done?
That's a funny story. So first I thought I didn't need an editor, and I was like, my best buddy could edit it for me. Like he could do me the favor. And then I started like, I'm like, I could read it to him and then just to say it out loud first, and then just give it to him to edit. And then after reading like the first chapter, I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. Like I need an actual editor who like I'm not affiliated with and whose job it is to do this. So I like by myself edited it 7 times. I read the whole thing 7 times through, just over the course of writing it. And I'm like, okay, it's probably not that much to do. Like, edit that. No, it took 3 edits, 2 edits with like the big editor, who's extremely helpful. There was a lot that needed work, and then sent it to a proofreader after that. So after that, I was like, I think she gave me like a 95% accuracy thing. And I was like, okay, it's probably good. And I thought it was done. Still went through it and like found like 1 or 2 more things. But then I think it was like the final pictures that's what took the longest. My dad sent me the ones of like us at the racetrack when we were kids, and I don't even know if he's seen the final copy. He read like one of the first editions, and so he hasn't seen the pictures in, I don't think. But yeah, those like getting those dialed in and doing the last the about me section stuff, and then I had a checklist and like I was going over everything meticulously. And
I was just curious, and you just mentioned your dad. I can't imagine how proud they are of you.
Yeah, yes, it has been quite the journey with him.
Yeah,
he wrote the foreword, and just doing the audiobook with my dad was one of the funniest experiences ever.
Oh, get out! That's so funny. Wait, I don't think the foreword's in my copy because I have the PDF.
Should be.
Is it
before the like first poem, or just after the?
Oh, I'm gonna have to look again because
table of contents.
Maybe I missed it. I'm gonna have to go back the minute we're done. It might be. I forgive me, but and maybe I thought it was you who wrote it because it's had your name, or I don't know.
Yeah,
so now I don't. That's so funny. Well, it is truly a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to watching this journey continue upward, and really,
thank you.
Keep it up. It's so lovely to see someone find themselves and articulate themselves in such a beautiful way. I mean, we all struggle. I mean, like you said, to know in high school what you want to do is a tough one. And
yeah, very rare.
Your journey led you to a few different things, but it opened up this world, that seems to bring you, just reading the book, it seems like it's bringing you utter joy. The travel brings you utter joy, but also putting it into words seems to bring you that as well.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. You can feel it. You can feel it. Oh, before we go, tell everybody about the Dream to Dare. Is that what it's called?
Dare to Dream. Yeah, the Dare to Dream.
Dare to Dream podcast. Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, basically, I just kind of feeding off of what you just said. whatever. So the Dare to Dream podcast is me and my buddy, Gregory Russell Benedict. We both left our jobs at the beginning of the pandemic. I was in real estate, he was in finance, and kind of threw ourselves into what we might want to do with our lives. And so he started a nonprofit called EPOG Academy. And he's a life coach now and all in the last year and a half. And so we do this podcast called the Dare to Dream podcast, which pretty much tells people or interviews people of just people that are living their truth, or at least trying to find it. And because like we tell ourselves, like, it's not like we have it figured out and we're like living the life of our dreams and everything is perfect, but we're at least taking those steps to find out what that might be. So that's kind of what the show is about. We have people on who are doing things that really excite them and light them up. And yeah, it's pretty much just about kind of doing unconventional things and going for your dreams.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Congrats. Somebody who's watching, Matthew, says, I actually live in Crescent City. Don't judge a book by its cover, young Vincent.
Sorry.
He said, besides, we are surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the majestic redwoods, and the Smith River. I think Vincent would agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, I judged it by my one drive through, and I was feeling weird anyway. So it's probably lovely.
So funny. That's so great. Well, thank you. Before we go, stay right there. I just want to thank Vincent for being here. His book is available on Amazon.com, Arrows of Youth. I encourage you all to read it and let him know what you think, because it's truly beautiful. Folks, tomorrow there's a show I'm doing at 6 p.m. for Twist Out Cancer. And their Brushes with Cancer program at a special time, 6 p.m. Eastern. You will be moved and inspired. And I will leave you with Vincent Van Patten reading one of his poems that is on his website. You can check it out. And it's vincentvanpatten.com. Vincent, thank you, my friend, for being here.
Thank you so much, Alan. It has been a pleasure. First live interview. So grateful. And
good.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it a lot. So
good.
I will.
Everybody, I will see you tomorrow. Here's Vincent and Vincent's poem.
Inspired by the morning moon while gazing towards the sky, it's early when I feel at peace. I think I now know why. The world is still, but my soul stirs. I long to write it down. The history of why we're here, so wonderfully profound. I love to write about the world and all that makes us, us, to travel and experience life. They call it wanderlust. But this past year, as we've stepped back, seeking which way to move, I've wondered what would make me happy. What is there to prove? My dream is to inspire others with every step I take towards my heart, spirit, and soul. No longer could I fake. I've gone within in hopes to find what it means to live, though as I write and share my thoughts, found meaning when I give. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alan. Take care.